All right. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Nazia Khan, and I am the Assistant Director at the Atlantic Council South Asia Center. On behalf of the Atlantic Council and our President, Frederick Kemp, I would like to welcome you all to what I think will be a really good discussion. We have spent a week with these fellows, and we have had so many great discussions already, so I'm really glad that we can open up this conversation to more people. So today we're joined by the 2015 Emerging Leaders of Pakistan. There's 4 up here on stage and many more right here in the front rows. The South Asia Center launched this program. It's the Emerging Leaders of Pakistan Fellowship Program. We launched it about 3 years ago, aiming to identify, cultivate, and support young changemakers from across Pakistan and build a sustained and mutually beneficial engagement with them. So each year, after a really rigorous application process, which I think everyone in these front row can attest to, we select 15 young civil society leaders from across the country, from across Pakistan, to participate in a 3-week fellowship. The fellowship consists of a 3-week study tour, but it is a longer-term engagement with each other, with the 15, with the bigger cohort of past fellows, and then also a more sustained engagement with the Atlantic Council. So this being the 4th class of fellows, we have basically built a nucleus of change makers that's nearly 60 strong in Pakistan. They're working across diverse sectors. They're working at the grassroots level and in truly innovative ways. So at the Atlantic Council, we believe that this is important because Pakistan is important. Just last week, Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif was in Washington, D.C. at the request of the Obama administration. They discussed the promotion of public health and girls' education, economic growth, clean energy was a very big topic of discussion, and a shared commitment to a stable Afghanistan and counterterrorism. They also discussed the promotion of civil society, because an active and flourishing civil society is really the undercurrent of all of these issues. It is necessary. It's a necessary piece of a functioning democracy, a flourishing economy, and a stable government. And Pakistan's youth, which makes up a majority of the population in the country, plays a huge role in this. So with this fellowship program, we get a really unique perspective to look into these issues through a unique lens. We have these young leaders here who are living, working, and experiencing both the challenges facing the country and the progress that is occurring every single day on the ground. So I have to mention, unfortunately, this morning that we did wake up to really unfortunate news from the region. As all of you, I'm sure, know, there was I believe it was a 7.5 magnitude earthquake in Afghanistan that really rumbled through Pakistan. It was felt in India as well. And it's really devastating. Our thoughts and prayers, of course, are with all of those affected, with the friends and family that inevitably many people have relationships to in this room. It was undoubtedly tragic, but I also woke up with really a sense of hope thinking about the work that the fellows are doing. I couldn't help but think of Azhar, who, in the week in New York, we've talked about how he's using communications and technology platforms to develop better responses to tragedies such as this. That's just one of the things that he does, and you'll hear more about that later. But that's why this is all so important. A civil society, one that is connected, organized, and working really at all levels, is the first step to building a stable country and one that can respond to something like this. So the 4 fellows you see here on the stage and the remaining in the front row, they're social entrepreneurs, they're aspiring politicians, photojournalists, educationists, and educators. They're tech innovators and minority rights activists, and more. And they're all working to improve their communities and to tackle the most pressing problems facing the country. The 15 really represent a cross-section of Pakistan's diverse society, and that's a goal of ours whenever we select them. And this is the first opportunity for all of them to travel to North America. Also a really important thing because we want this opportunity to be open up to people who maybe don't have access to something like this in the past. So the purpose of the fellowship for us, it's threefold. Firstly, we want to really empower these young leaders with the practical skills so that they can glean the best practices from the people that they meet and adapt that back to their own context in Pakistan. Secondly, as I mentioned previously, we're really trying to build that nucleus of change makers in the country. So we really want them to work with each other to facilitate idea exchange and to build collaborative relationships, because we're not always the ones that are best suited here in Washington, D.C. to face some of the challenges in the country. Most of the time we're not. And so we are really trying to empower those people who are there and working and living with it every day. Finally, we're seeking to build a foundation for a strengthened U.S. and Pakistan relationship. We're working at the people-to-people level. We're hoping to address misperceptions on both sides of the relationship. The fellows have spent a week in New York. They're in D.C. They had the first day of meetings today in D.C. We will go to Austin later this week and then finish up in San Francisco. So we'll get a pretty diverse spectrum of different meetings. And through all of these meetings, they will be sharing their experiences, knowledge, and recommendations with stakeholders in the relationship. And they will share the issues that they believe are facing youth and the future of Pakistan. And a lot of those things will come up today. So we really are hoping to cement a foundation for a better and more informed engagement between Pakistan and the United States at that individual level. So I would really like to take a moment to thank the Carnegie Corporation of New York for supporting this program for the last 4 years. I would also like to thank the U.S. Embassy in Islamabad that has supported all aspects of the fellows' visit. They hosted the fellows for a pre-departure orientation in Islamabad and will continue to work with them whenever they return. I'd like to, of course, recognize Huma Haq, who's right there in the second row. She worked on the program since the first year and has really guided this effort. So we're all grateful to her for that. And also, finally, I'd like to thank the Meridian International Center for being our implementing partner in the project, particularly Meg Poole and Jocelyn, who are in the room here. And I'd actually really like if Meg would come up and maybe say a few words on behalf of Meridian. I think this is on.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for coming. I just want to speak on behalf of my colleague Jocelyn and I and our organization. What a privilege it is to be a part of this program. First, as an opportunity to work with the Atlantic Council and some of the other great partners that brings, but also truly a privilege to have an inside perspective from this incredible group of fellows. It's not every program that we get to travel around with the group and hear directly from them and really witness as their eyes are being opened or as they're sharing some of their stories from the field. Meridian, for about the past 60 years, has provided leadership development programs for nearly every country around the world on every topic. And we primarily deliver that through exchange programs. And so most of those are happening here in the United States. And what we get to do for a living is design 3-week exchange programs for incredible groups like this and identify their counterparts in the United States who they should be meeting with. So just again, thank you to the Atlantic Council for this opportunity, and everyone enjoy.
All right. Thanks, Meg. So without further ado, I'd really like to turn it over to the fellows. You all should have a copy of the bios. There's more in the lobby if you didn't get a chance to grab that. We can't even touch the amount of work that they're doing, the extent that they're working in their communities. So I really encourage you all to read through those bios closely and to engage with them in the Q&A and also in the reception that we have following this event. So I think everyone will probably tell you about the work that they're doing. So I'll just really quickly introduce everyone, and then we can just jump straight in. So right here we have Fatma Rizwan, who is the founder and CEO of TechJuice, Pakistan's premier technology hub and entrepreneurship hub. Next to her is Danish Ali Bhutto, who he's a legislative researcher and a women's rights advocate. He works with the federal legislature, particularly the Women's Parliamentary Caucus. And then next to him, we have Zara Ali, who is a lecturer at the University of Karachi and also the Aga Khan University. She's a psychologist by training and is working to provide services to underprivileged communities, vulnerable populations, and also just in general dispel the stigma around mental health in a developing country. And then finally, we have Azhar, who is from Mardan originally, but living in Islamabad. And as I mentioned before, he's an entrepreneur who uses technology and communications platforms to address some of the issues that are facing Pakistan, including humanitarian crises, but also other development problems, issues, response mechanisms around the country. So, all right, Fatima, do you want to kick off?
Okay, right. Is it working? Hi, my name is Fatima Rizwan, and I'm from Lahore. I'm a computer engineer by profession, and I graduated from University of Engineering and Technology in 2012. And unlike most of the individuals in my class, I wanted to start my own company instead of opting for a job. So I had an idea for a product and applied for incubation. So in 2012, there was only one incubation center in Pakistan. So I applied, and I wasn't shortlisted. In the meanwhile, I participated in a hackathon, won the hackathon, and the person who awarded me the prize was the CEO of a company. So he said, Fatma, you should apply for the job. I applied for the job, but 6 months into the job, I realized that this is not what I want to do with my life. I don't want to be a software engineer. I just don't want to be a software engineer. I want to do something else with my life. I want to do something which can impact a lot of people. So 6 months into the job, I applied again for the incubation. At that time, again, there was only one incubation center in Pakistan, and unfortunately, I was rejected again. So during the whole process of applying for incubation at this incubation center and getting the rejection, I realized that there is not a single platform in Pakistan that is working for entrepreneurs and startup founders in the country. So I researched that night, and within a week, I came up with this idea that there should be a platform in Pakistan that should cover entrepreneurs in the country. And in future, there will be a lot of people who want to start their own companies and working in different sectors in technology. So I started TechJuice, and within a matter of few months, we started gaining a lot of traction because in Pakistan, this was totally new. I mean, we were interviewing people who were running different organizations, and we were making the information available online. So this was something really very new, and people were very kind to us. I mean, we started approaching CEOs of high-tech organizations, and they were available for the interviews. So people started following our website, and in the meanwhile, we started getting a lot of traction in terms of collaboration with different organizations. And since we became Raymond Profitable, I started hiring people as well. So it's been a year and a half. I have a team of 12 individuals who are working with me in different cities of the country. Our head office is in Lahore at Alpha Software Technology Park. And within a matter of 1 year, we have covered a lot of startup founders in Pakistan. Our startup founders have, for example, recently we covered a startup founder. They have raised, it's an e-commerce website. They raised $50 million. So, and then there was another Zameen.com property listing website. It also raised $9 million. And there was also a young individual from a university. He was only 20 years old. And he got featured on our website for his startup. And after a matter of 2 to 3 months, he raised $100,000. So it's a great achievement for us. And TechJuice is more like a hub for entrepreneurs in the country. It's a digital platform. But in addition to that, we are also doing events in different cities. We go to different universities. We organize events. And we tell young people that starting a business is not something that only Western countries can do. You can also start their own companies. And we are here to help and support you. And in addition to that, we also do events for startup founders and investors where we invite different startup founders from the country and investors from different cities who have already achieved something in their life and they want to invest in young companies. And that's it.
Assalamu alaikum and a very good evening, all of you. It's a pleasure being here and talking to you. My name is Danish Ali Bhutto. I'm a legislative researcher and a women's rights activist. I actually work at the federal parliament and contributing to parliamentary oversight, gender-sensitive legislation, and advocacy on women issues. At the parliament, I'm particularly attached with the Women's Parliamentary Caucus of the Parliament of Pakistan. Before I get into what the National Assembly of Pakistan, which is the lower equivalent of the lower house of the Parliament of Pakistan, what it has been doing for engaging youth in the policy making and legislation, I would talk about what Women's Parliamentary Caucus is and what it has been doing so far in terms of rights of women, empowering women in areas of politics and socio-economic empowerment of women, and what it has been doing to cope with the instances of violence against women, from domestic violence to gender issues and early marriages and everything. Basically, Women's Parliamentary Caucus is a non-formal, informal platform of women parliamentarians from both the houses, National Assembly as well as Senate, which works on consensus building and advocacy on women issues, and by enacting different gender-sensitive laws and different advocacy on women issues, oversight of the executive. So this is one of the things. How I got into Parliament was like I had been a part of a EU-funded project. I'm basically a business graduate, but I chose working in the Parliament instead of working for some corporate organization or corporation, a multinational corporation. So I chose that particular project because I had an urge of doing something that is a broader impact, and Parliament was the best place for that. And I came through one of the opportunities. There was a project improving parliamentary performance in Pakistan. So I got an opportunity to apply for that. I got in there. It was a project funded by European Union and implemented by British Council at the Parliament. So getting an opportunity to work with the Parliament was one of the biggest things one could ever think of. So I chose to apply for that. I got selected over there. I went to the Parliament, became a part of Women's Parliamentary Caucus as a young parliamentary associate. I got in there. There was a lot of resistance by the people over there because administrative system and bureaucracy is very rigid as far as change is concerned. So the youth was coming. That was a project of about 100 young people engaging within the Parliament and working directly with the parliamentarians on research and coordination and advocacy. So there was a lot of resistance by the bureaucrats, senior bureaucrats, but we made it. And I am currently a permanent part of that particular organization. I'm working at the Speaker's office, and Women's Parliamentary Caucus is a part of that. So I'm also working on program and coordination of Women's Parliamentary Caucus as well, writing different concepts notes, brief papers on gender issues, domestic violence. Then again, we have been currently working on kind of tabling the laws in terms of home-based workers, domestic violence, and domestic workers, because there are a lot of people who are working at homes on different crafts and different skills, but they've got no political or legislative backing. So we are going to table a bill to ensure their rights are protected and they are given their due, whatever the work they have been doing. As far as National Assembly of Pakistan is concerned, with that advent of Young Parliamentary Associates program in the Parliament of Pakistan, they realized that the youth has got a lot of potential. And now they have been very welcoming as far as initiatives and engagement of youth in the policy making and research is concerned. So inputs have been taken from the youth. They are engaging more than 100 young professionals in the Parliament. So right now, what they are doing is, other than the Young Parliamentary Associates program, Parliament of Pakistan has also initiated a parliamentary studies program in different universities of Pakistan, so as to sensitize the youth in terms of policy and legislation, that they should come forward and they should do something to strengthen democracy, because we have had first ever democratically elected government, transition of government from one democratically elected government to another. So there needs to be a sensitivity on, amongst the youth as far as democracy and human rights is concerned. So that is why Parliament right now is doing, they have initiated a parliamentary studies program, and more than 60 universities have signed in with the Parliament to initiate that particular program, so that human rights and democracy and all these civic sense can be kind of brought out amongst the youth. If we kind of shift towards the women's rights and other, so what Women's Parliamentary Caucus is doing, we have been developing research reports on different issues like early marriages and domestic violence, then issues like regards to harassment of women in workplace. So there has been laws that has been enacted in the Parliament in terms of acid crime prevention and protection of acid victims. Then there's another law criminalizing anti-women practices like honor killing, and there are so many other anti-women practices going on in Pakistan. And other than that, there have been laws to ensure that domestic workers are being protected, home-based workers are being protected. So a lot of has been going on into the Parliament to ensure that youth has been engaged within the Parliament in the policy making and decision making, and so that they can emerge as future leaders. So these are some of the things. Thanks so much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Zara, and as Nazia has already introduced, very rightly introduced, that I'm a psychologist by profession. I teach at the University of Karachi, which is a state university in Pakistan, and I'm a visiting faculty at Khan University School of Nursing, where I teach psychology to undergraduate students. Very rightly said, I dispel stigma around mental illness, to be short, but to be frank and honest, there's a lot to say in very little time. I try my best to make it short. Okay, let's start with a little review, an overview on mental illness and how it affects societies in general. As we all know that people with mental illness and psychosocial illnesses represent a major proportion of world's population. According to the stats, 1 in 4 people will experience mental health issues in their lifetime. About 1 million people die of mental illness. 1 million people die of suicide every year, and suicide is the 3rd leading cause of death. Particularly, depression has been ranked as the 3rd leading burden of disease, 3rd leading cause burden of disease, and it's projected that it's going to secure 1st place in the disease burden by 2030. Also, if we see national suicide statistics in Pakistan, suicide is not really formally reported and compiled in Pakistan, and that is why it's not reported to World Health Organization annually, which means that any obtained data is neglected or underreported. That way, mental health is both a cause and consequence of poverty, compromised education, ill health, abuse, violence, all sorts of issues, right? So that is why mental health plays an important role in the implementation of Sustainable Development Goals by United Nations. If we look at the stigma, there's a lot of stigma around mental illness, especially in the developing countries, and Pakistan is one of them. People do not talk about, they do not speak up about mental illness. And because of this lack of stigma, because of lack of awareness, there's a meager amount of professionals, number of professionals available for services. There are about 2 or 3 professionals available for 1 million people in Pakistan. And that is why I aim to provide easily accessible mental health services to people, to vulnerable populations. And who do we call vulnerable populations? These are the population, people who are trauma victims, teenagers, all those people, adults, children who suffer from mental illness. I run a community-based mental health project. I work with the Khan Development Network, particularly Khan Social Welfare Board for Pakistan, wherein I look after the mental health portfolio. This is a community-based mental health project where we have started free clinic and referral services. We provide free clinic referral services, as well as we do free awareness sessions for people. These awareness sessions are on the risk factors of mental health. Recently, I formulated a paper on mental health as well, in which we talked about mental illness, risk factors, protective factors, and all the necessary issues. In a span of 1 year, we started in January 2014. In a span of 1 year, by January 2015, we had covered around 1,000 people, 1,000 clients directly, and more than 1,000 indirectly through the word of mouth. There's a worth mentioning case study that would further highlight the work that we do in this domain. I'd like to mention the incident of 13th May 2015, when Shia Ismaili sect of Muslims were attacked by 6 terrorists that resulted in 45 or more casualties. In the wake of that incident, we went door to door in that community. We visited individuals who had lost their families, people who had directly witnessed and survived the trauma, and all those who were indirectly suffering from the trauma. They were provided screening services, free counseling services, and any other psychiatric intervention that was required. Not only this, we did not just limit it to the psychiatric intervention, but also the empathy and social support that was required by all those people who were indirectly affected by the trauma. We did group therapy sessions with them, we did recreational activities, and in a span of 3 to 4 months, most of them had resumed their work lives, their routines. So that was a success story. Another story that I'd like to share, I'm a storyteller and I like doing that. Another story was about a 35-year-old male. He was a business graduate. He had a psychotic breakdown in his early 20s. He had lost his job, he had isolated himself, he was suicidal. His only caregiver was his 70-year-old mother. Even though he was referred to a psychiatric clinic, but he wasn't adhering to any sort of psychiatric prescription or regimen that was prescribed by the doctor. And he was also unwilling to follow up with any of the doctors. At that point, we acknowledged the importance of protecting our clients, our patients' dignity. And that is the point we acknowledged, and that is the point we understood how to humanize the experience of mental health. That is when we started a social support gatekeeper mechanism in which team members were trained to visit the client, to follow up with the client, to do support interventions, to provide empathy, social support, because this client, he needed treatment, but more than that, he needed empathy, he needed social support. And believe me, in few months from that time on, in 5 to 6 months, that client was regularly following up with the doctors. He was looking out for jobs, and this was a journey from being homebound and suicidal to being social and occupationally functional. So that was a huge success story for us. And that is the whole concept, the idea of introducing mental health into the doorsteps of the community, to the people. That is when we realized that we didn't want to wait for people to approach us, but we wanted to reach out to them, rather than wait in our offices and assume that they would come to us since this thing is new. Anyways, about the future interventions, we aspire to extend this gatekeeper support structure mechanism, and we would want to extend this to the remote areas of Pakistan, like Chitral and Gilgit, where the suicide rate is alarming, where it's increasing every day. We would like to extend it to those areas. Also, we plan on starting our own crisis intervention hotline, which has been very successfully implemented in other countries, but we'd like to introduce that in Pakistan, even though we do have telehealth hotlines in Pakistan, but they do not directly address psychological issues. With this helpline, we would want it to focus on the crisis intervention. Lastly, the third intervention is introducing an online system, introducing online modules, educational modules, to make the mental health awareness process easily accessible and cost-effective across the youth of Pakistan. Thank you so much.
Hello everyone, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Sayyid Azhar Shah. I am basically co-founder of a technological company, Telemutants, and I am also communication for development specialist. Before I go to what I have been doing and what I am plan to do, first I would like to give a little bit perspective. Pakistan, being a developing country, faces a lot of pressing issues, a lot of chronic problems like illiteracy, lack of infrastructure, lack of health facilities. There are a lot of problems. And to add to that, the conflicts that have taken place, the world has changed after 9/11. We all agree on that, and it has affected Pakistan tremendously, being a frontline state in the war. And that has led to more problems. Now, if we go back to history, after the creation of Pakistan in 1947, the best thing that ever happened to Pakistan was the Green Revolution of the 1960s. Since a lot of the people in Pakistan are employed in the agriculture sector or the agrarian, it's an agrarian economy basically. And the Green Revolution led to high yield in the production. It led to mechanization of the agriculture. So that led to a lot of economic development. After that, the next big thing that has happened to Pakistan, it has been since the past 10 to 15 years, it has been the ICT revolution, the information and communication technology revolution. The media channel, there has been a widespread growth in the media channel, from news channel to sports to entertainment. A new service industry has evolved. Likewise, mobiles. Pakistan has a very healthy mobile penetration rate in the South Asian region. That's very encouraging rates. Then the internet, like as this spread of ICT happened, or as I believe I call it revolution. So likewise, in many educational institutions, different new disciplines also started, and a lot of people started enrolling in them, like business and IT graduates, and computer sciences graduates, telecommunication graduates. Now, this gives us an opportunity to bank on this new ICT revolution and use it for addressing some of the biggest development challenges of Pakistan. Today, unfortunately, earthquake has struck Pakistan. For past few years, there was a 2005 earthquake. After that, in 2010, there was massive flooding. In 2011, there was again flooding. So there have been a lot of disasters in Pakistan for quite some time. So this perspective, I will give example how technology we have used to address some of the development issues of Pakistan. When there was a post-flood relief project in the 2011 floods, accountability is always a very important issue for any donor or any funding partner in any organization, especially when it's humanitarian assistance. It was a food and shelter distribution project for 400 households in the Sindh province of Pakistan. Now, in any humanitarian crisis, resources are scarce. You do not have a lot of resources available that you can come in and deploy any high-tech system. So you have to rely on something that is like, you can say, virtually free. So what we did was, the area was Mirpur Khas. What we figured out that there was the Frontline SMS. A lot of you must have heard the name of it. It's an open source SMS platform. So we used Frontline SMS. The population was illiterate, the beneficiaries, 400 total in number. We devised a keywords mechanism system for them. And what we used to do through that for the host organization, we established two-way communication channels. So what they used to do was, when they used to tell the people that at this point, at this date and time, the food or shelter will be distributed. So they used to tell in the SMS that it would contain this much rice and this much oil and this much wheat and whatever were the things inside. And when people would go there, and also with this, a very good outreach campaign was also launched, and the people were told, they were given leaflets that 0 to 9 keywords. What does this mean? What does 0 means? 1 means, like 1 was, I guess, for if there is a problem in food. 2 was like for a problem in shelter. 3 was like for corruption. It also addressed 7 or 8 was for disability. 6 was, I guess, for if someone tries to exploit any woman or tries to take bribe from them. The illiterate people, a lot of them had not even did not even knew that like you could ever send a text. So they were just through demonstration trained, and it was a huge success. Within that project, the 0 corruption was reported. And I again tell you that was a humanitarian assistance project. Some people who are associated with the development sector, they would understand that when humanitarian crisis happen and it's emergency response, so the corruption in these cases, they are rampant, they happen. So this is one example of how technology was used. And to add to this, the cost factor, open source tool was used. And since, as I said, that the telecommunication has spread to all parts of Pakistan, mobile outreach is there, and SMS is very cheap. So the best part of this is that the monthly operational cost was less than $1. The tool was free. You just needed a laptop. Most of all, you needed the will that yes, I have to deploy this. Yes, the people have right. They should be informed what they would be given. And they can complain. And we can listen back from them and learn from them. I would give another example of how technology can be used to improve the development sector programming. Another project of, since you people may be acquainted with that, the northern belt of Pakistan, the FATA region and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, to which I myself belong, it has been affected. Pakistan has been affected by this conflict, the war on terror, and being a frontline state. Within Pakistan, FATA and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province have been affected the most. Now there was a project, so because there is this realization that economic drivers of conflict are very important. They need to be addressed in order to address this issue. So what they did was they launched a livelihood program. There was this organization, and what we did in that was it was through radio programming. They would tell people how you can do small livelihood opportunities like home gardening, honeybees farming. These were for these radio shows were for the IDPs, internally displaced people of the FATA and KPK region, and these were for the other people living within FATA at that time. So there were 6 radio shows and a soap drama. So what we used to do, we set up an audience feedback system. So through with SMS and through interactive voice response, and we leveraged upon the modern SIP technology. I would not get too much into technical jargon to make it simplify that at one point of time, a lot of people, for each show at one point of time, 20 people could make a call and no one would get a busy line. So you see the engagement. This is a two-way engagement, how you are engaging the people. And when they would get the feedback of their radio show, the benefit was that immediately they would get to know, okay, so this program was a success. This was not a success. This topic was good. People liked honeybees. They found it easy. Oh, kitchen gardening? No, people had problem. They did not got it. We need to again invite the guest, or people have questions. We need to send it to the guest, connect them. So this made it easy. You could not go to FATA directly. You could not go access each and every person, even if you go there. But through technology, it made it possible. So these are just 2 examples, and later on maybe we get a chance, we will talk about some other. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. I'd like to open up, before I open it up to the audience for questions, I'd like to just pose maybe one question to either the people on stage with me or some of the fellows who are in the front row. So in some of our meetings today, and just over the course of the last week, we keep on harping on the fact that Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif was just here last week. The Obama administration invited him to the White House, and that's a pretty rare thing. Not many leaders of countries get invited just to talk about the bilateral relationship. So it shows that there's a huge significance in this relationship. But what I want to know from all of you is he raising the right issues? What do you think, as young leaders who are working in the country, are the roadblocks to progress that you face, that the country faces as a whole? So if anyone wants to answer, you can just raise your hands, or maybe I can pose it to the people on stage.
Yeah, I believe, talking about the issues, one of the major concerns, one of the major challenges for Pakistan is security and war on terror. So I believe the issues that have been raised are quite significant as far as gender equality is concerned, and issues related to the security, and issues related to the economic cooperation. So these are some of the things that have been discussed, and I believe these are some of the major concerns as far as the bilateral relations are concerned.
Is there anything else that you think he maybe isn't covering? Are there any other issues that you think kind of get pushed under the rug?
I would just say being part of this youth forum and working in the tech sector of Pakistan, since tech sector of Pakistan is growing at a very good pace, and there is this feeling among the young people who are involved with this tech sector or entrepreneurship in one way or the other, that through entrepreneurship we can rebuild Pakistan, a better Pakistan. So I think that since our neighbor India, the Indian Prime Minister was here, and he got some good meetings, some good things out of Washington, like and went out to all the way to Facebook and had meetings. We set up was successful in getting a $150 million or something venture capitalist fund set up for entrepreneurs in India. So I think this is something which the Pakistani leadership needs to think about, that they need to focus on this area also, try to get something out here.
What we found interesting at the South Asia Center is, that was back a few weeks ago, whenever the Indian Prime Minister Singh came to the United States for the General Assembly, he gave up his opportunity to give a speech at the General Assembly and just went to the West Coast. So he went to talk to the entrepreneurs and the tech companies, while Nawaz Sharif came to New York to address the international community. So it was just interesting to see the priorities and where the bilateral relationships really are. Hussein, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I wanted to.
And if you will, please just introduce yourself briefly, and then you can.
I'm Hussein Haider, and I'm co-founder of Bedar Society and Eco Change. Bedar is an organization working for promoting education for sustainable development and human rights in Pakistan. And Eco Change is promoting sustainable development globally and having chapters in 7 countries of the world. Well, I want to add one thing. That is the most important thing, and our leaders finally should realize it, that like they have to think like in a creative way, because the world has been changed a lot. You cannot just like go to the international forums and talk about the same issues which have been discussed for like quite a long time. Okay, what's happening in Afghanistan, what's happening in that country, and what's happening in that country. We are increasing our military strength, or we want to get a hold over the politics of the region and all this stuff. Like, no, the battle is like, or like the war is not about like fighting with like weapons. It's like more about like, if you want to prove yourself, you have to prove it economically. You have to create a strong economy. You have to create a strong education system. Like, I have been to Japan. I went to Japan, like it was like a huge forum, World Education for Sustainable Development conference, and they were like ministers from 80 countries of the world. And sorry to say, our Minister of Education didn't put it in as his priority, and he didn't attend the event. So that's what I want to say about our politicians, and especially about our current politicians, that they have to think creatively, like they have to bring some creative solutions. I'm really inspired by the work Mr. Modi had done. Like when he came to here, he like met the CEO of Facebook. I mean, like, this is the real thing. Because he knew that, no, Facebook is the reality. And like he met some entrepreneurs because he knew that this is the reality. But like while addressing to the presidents or like heads of the nation doesn't make any difference, because this is what we have been doing for a long time. And just like speeches and just like, you know, delivering the lectures, it doesn't really make a difference. No, our country needs something positive. Our country needs something solid, and our country needs something on ground at the grassroots level. Like, for example, if we talked about, just to cut it short, talked about the tax system. Our tax system is really horrible. Like, it is actually affecting the entrepreneurs of a country who are the future of the country, and it is giving a lot of exemptions to the big industrialists. Like, industrialists are still there, and they will be there forever, because they have like a lot of wealth, they have a lot of power to like manage to escape the tax system. But like entrepreneurs like us are the one affected by the system. Thank you.
So I'd like to open it up to questions. I'd ask that you please wait for the mic and then introduce yourself when you do. So, Jay.
Hi, Hello, everyone, and thank you all for being here, and welcome to the United States. I'm Jay Kansara. I'm the Director of Government Relations for the Hindu American Foundation. We've done quite a bit of research on religious minorities in Pakistan, and so my question is on that line. And it's directed primarily on the stage to Danish Saib. However, anyone on stage or in the audience is welcome to provide their thoughts. My question is that there are, because of past generations of leaders of Pakistan, there are certain laws on the books or that are not on the books that really hinder religious freedom and religious expression in Pakistan, particularly the blasphemy laws, as well as the laws that discriminate against the Ahmadi Muslim community, as well as the lack of a Hindu Marriage Act. My question is, as young leaders of Pakistan, what can the world expect from your generation to ensure that minority rights are a priority for coming generations of parliamentarians and lawmakers? And what are the obstacles that maybe this current generation faces in introducing those laws?
Thank you very much for your question, and it's obviously a very relevant question. As far as the blasphemy law is concerned, if you see the recent progress on that, there was a time that when nobody could talk against that. There was a time that when talking against that meant that you will be losing your life. But right now, if you see the recent case in which former governor Samad Asif was assassinated, the person who was the perpetrator, his charges, his sentence has been retained by the Supreme Court of Pakistan. And there was very pertinent remarks by the judge of the Supreme Court that talking against blasphemy and talking against the blasphemy law are two different things. So there's room for development, and there is hope that if the justice of the Supreme Court has started talking against the law, so there's a room that quite possible that in future we might see some amendments. And as far as the other law you are talking about is in terms of Hindu marriage law. So there are different MNAs working in the parliament from the minorities, Hindus as well as Christians, and you will be surprised to know that there's one of the women on minority seat, which is a Christian, Asa Nasir. She is from the political party which is extreme right, Jamiyat Ulama Islam. She's part of that, and she has been doing amazingly. She's been doing an amazing job and working actively in the parliament. She has been on one of the topmost persons who are involved in the most of the business of the house. So she's doing an amazing job, and it has been on the priority list to enact such law that rights of Hindus are protected. And as far as other issues related to minorities are concerned, I guess we have a couple of friends who are working on minority rights. They can talk more about that.
I think Rizwan here had a comment, and then we can come to the other way.
Thank you. Danish has rightly said that the acceptance has now been increasing among the most of the legislation at the level of legislation. Particularly, you have discussed that one of the most notorious law, which is blasphemy law. So it has taken many lives of the most of the innocent people in Pakistan. The law, Danish has said that the Salman Taseer, who was assassinated by one of the right-wing person who was his actually bodyguard. Then now, previously judges, the judges who supposed to verdict on those specific laws were fearing to take those cases. But now the trend has been changed, and we are hope that someday that law would be amended, and we cannot say that we are not hopeless. And there are apart from this one, there are major changes that are supposed to be brought into the for instance, Hindu Marriage Act that has recently been debated, but that has not been signed and agreed. But we hope that our minority rights legislators are working on it, and soon you will get good news from them.
Swai, will you please introduce yourself briefly before we hand it over to Rizwan?
Sorry, my name is Hawaimal. I am a minority rights activist. Uh, Actually, I am from Sindh, which is one of the major area where minority is in considerable proportion. But now, since the establishment of the Pakistan, minority of that area were Hindus, but now has been decreasing. But we are trying to create a harmonious and environment to have a good environment, minority rights. Minority friendly environment that can have acceptance in terms of having interfaith harmony and religious and what we can say tolerance in our society.
Thank you. And then Rizwan right over here.
Thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Rizwan and I promote religious tolerance in Pakistan, and being one of the most targeted community in terms of religious tolerance Christian community. My family lost everything. One of the community violence incident which compelled me to work for the eradication of the religious extremism in Pakistan. And the gentleman asked question about the minorities' rights. Yes, it's true that we have not as much not rights, and it has lot of ground realities. But it was not as no. In the past history, when we see in the creation of Pakistan, minorities leaders supported the Pakistan, and the last vote. Maybe you know about the SP Singha was a Christian leader. He put a casted vote, and the Punjab became a part of the Pakistan. It was a secular Pakistan, but there was a lot of, in the history, in the last 30, 40 years, there was a lot of Islamization was in force in Pakistan, and a lot of extremism, all that. And there's the issue that the minorities are facing a lot because the country state has a one religion perspective. Until this state has not separate from the religion, the minorities will face issues. And still there are a lot of issues, and the minority and the issue, the constitution of Pakistan ignored the minorities. Society ignored the minorities. Political process ignored the minorities. There are a lot of issues, and it is a hurdles for the minority leaders to come at the parliament, at come legislation process, and there's a lot of issue. And the tolerance level of the Pakistani people is very low. And this is a lot of thing that we have to work, and it will take time until we have to work on the people we have. And currently I started a nationwide movement for promoting a religious tolerance in Pakistan, because I feel whenever we talk about the blasphemy law, when we talk about changes of blasphemy law, when we talk about the make any legislation in the parliament, the people come in the streets, they talk against us, against the minority. It's mean the tolerance level of people is very low. Now we have started a movement in Pakistan. We are trying to people that they have to speak up for the minorities. They have to speak against the conflict. They have to speak up against this extremism think tank. And we believe that by engaging the people, by awareing the people from our community that they have to stand up for the minorities, it will be helpful for us to work in the legislation process, to work for the blasphemy law, to work for all that. And I believe and I hope that in the next time, in the future, we will see a one secular and democratic Pakistan. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one brief comment from Anam, and then we'll go back to questions.
Hello everyone, my name is Anam Bhatti and I'm actually a visual artist using art and design to uplift life in Pakistan. I just have to, add a small incident basically about my project which I did with the minorities and also the majority Muslim community of Pakistan. It was for the interfaith harmony, and what we did was we actually had this session of card making by the Christian orphans living in an orphanage for the elderly Muslims living in the old age home. And when the cards were taken to the Muslim old or elderly, which at the age of 60 and 70 are rigid and do not accept a lot of changes. None of the elderly anywhere in the world do, but they were very welcoming. The Muslim majority Muslim elderly were very welcoming, and the cards with the road were they were heartbreaking. Like, they were amazing cards, and the duas they sent them, the prayers, the love was amazing. So there, even the elderly do have a space for the other minorities, and the minorities also want to be there. But the our other communities, there are other forces which do not really let that happen. And because we have this gap, we do not engage with each other. We do not really relate to it. I do believe there is a hope where we can actually get them together, get the minorities together. As we are together here, we have two people from the minorities community, and the others also belonging to other sects of a Muslim community. We are here together and believe that we can work together to build a better Pakistan. Thank you.
So we're going to go here for a question.
Thank you. My name is Colonel Mohammad Rafiq. I am a visiting scholar of Georgetown University. First of all, I just congratulate you all people, all 15. You are proud of Pakistan, and I'm really happy to see you here. Just to comment issue of a minority, it's very good that these things are being highlighted at an international forum, and a scholar are highlighting these things. These phenomena are everywhere. Pakistan, I do agree, there are certain problems, but I think these problems are not as glare or significant. These problems are being improved day by day, and now if there are some problems, those to be seen in the context of the war on terror. These terrorists, these extremists, they are not good for their threat or something like all the segment of a society there in Pakistan, including minority as well. But by and large, I think if we just see the example, I think 2 out of 15 are from minority. That speaks almost 20% representation. And in Pakistan, there are hardly 1.5% minorities. And you see contemporary, our Indian friend was also telling that there are more issues, I think. You see how much Muslim population is there, and you see how much representation politically and other aspects. So I just must say that the group of scholars, you must focus on a good thing from United States like education, health, infrastructure, social setup, and do benefit your country when you go back. Thank you.
So why don't we go over here to the woman in green?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zara Heather. I work at IREX. We work closely with US CFP in Pakistan to help Pakistani undergraduate students come for a study abroad a semester here at different universities. My question is, all of you are here representing different causes, different social causes that you're working on to strengthen civil society. And I believe, Danish, you mentioned, a really big concern for, I guess, the international community is security in Pakistan because of its, geographical location. And so you all, as the 15 fellows that have been here, what is the thing that has been the most important for you, discussing together, sitting together? What is the most pressing issue for you to work on at this moment?
Is there someone in the front row who hasn't spoken who'd like to take it? Why don't you address it?
It working? Yeah, okay. I think the most important issue for all of us has been because it's a very interesting question, very exciting if you think about it. We all belong to diverse background, but when we sit together, we have discussions. The thing that I believe bothers most of us is the wrong perception. I would call it wrong. Why I would come to that? That the narrative that has been built about Pakistan in the outside, how we are trying here hard wherever we get the chance. When we have been having meeting with policymakers, with other very important organizations in New York, we've been trying to highlight that the perception in media is actually quite much different than the actual situation on ground. So we cannot deny the fact that there are problems because there is a big war has happened. It's still in place right now in Afghanistan. You can see in Kunduz what's happening. So you can see Pakistan is bordering that. And there are a lot of Afghan refugees. The situation is very complex. So, but the narrative in media, how it builds it, it shows like it's a security state where you go and there are always bomb blasts and you cannot walk around and you cannot do anything. So how it affects us very badly. We cannot get like any investments. We cannot expect that any clients, potential clients or any people would come to us. For example, here one of our fellows, he runs a tourism business. A few days back I had a chat with him, and his like he is associated with people with rural very small communities in far-flung areas whose livelihood depends on tourism. And our discussion, the conclusion was that it has been affected very much, and because the media narrative, that's very important. We need to see that. That's something which bothers all of us a lot, I would say.
If I were to add a perspective to what others said, I would say that it's the civic engagement of youth in the decision-making in democratic processes that I believe has been one of the most pressing issues. Because since, Pakistan consists of more than 60% of the population of youth, and it can be one of the major strengths of the country. So involvement of and engagement of youth in the democratic and decision-making processes is one of the major challenges. Because you see, we face so many different issues as far as youth is concerned, so many different challenges like poverty and discrimination and easy access to education and different amenities of life. So if a government formulates certain policies like where there is most of the majority of the youth has been engaged, so there could be so many different aspects of the challenges that Pakistan is facing, like militarization and violent extremism, and because this is the youth that has been taken out by these different extremist groups and been made to carry out activities that they should not be taking. So I guess it is the civic engagement of youth that stands as the most pressing issue.
So we're going to come to Fakia for a brief comment, and then we have a couple questions in the audience, so I'll take them together so we can squeeze more answers in.
Hello everyone, my name is Fakiha. I would like to add something to what Azhar said, and I agree that this is one of the major issues which we are facing right now, is that we build narrative and we have preconceived notions about our country and about our people. So I would not be specific, but I would generally like to comment, and I would like to tell everybody that yes, there are flaws in our system. Yes, Pakistan is facing challenges and lots of challenges. And right directly, whatever we say, we first of all, we start blaming our leaders and we start blaming our system. But I would say that these preconceived notions and these narratives are the biggest challenges which Pakistan is facing. And these are the things which actually creating the religious, you can say, intolerance. These are the things which are creating hype among the youth and, the terrorism and lots of these issues. So just because there are problems and just because we are going through hard times, we cannot lose hope for a better future. We cannot lose hope and we say to blame the future of Pakistan. We should always be positive and optimistic and keep striving for change and keep striving to build something positive. If we are positive and we would try to, build something good out of all those negative and odds, Pakistan would definitely have a great future, inshallah, very soon. So thank you so much.
Okay, Usman, very quickly, we'll have a comment from you, and then we'll take questions.
Hello, assalamu alaikum. Hello, my name is Usman Khan. I'm one of the fellows. I have an e-commerce startup in Pakistan by the name of Empress Bazaar. We empower remotely located artisans. I just want to briefly comment on my friend's point here is that Pakistan has a security concern. And yes, you might be right. That's one perspective. But if I remember correctly, and I don't know if this is the Times quote, that you are 50 times more likely to be killed in St. Louis than you are in a terrorist attack in Pakistan, and 10 times more likely to be killed in a traffic accident in US than in a terrorist attack in Pakistan. So it's more of just how you see the things. So thank you.
That's some good perspective. Thank you for thank you for adding that. We always talk about the stereotypes that are broken, and in the first week in New York, I think some of the fellows got some experience as to the insecurity that exists in the United States as well. So I think there was a question over here, and then was there another question over here? The lady in blue, I saw your hand earlier, so maybe we'll take both of those together, and then we'll take the next two from this gentleman.
Hello, everyone. I'm Shad Begum from Pakistan. I work for women's economic and political rights in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and FATA. And presently, I am Regan Fassel Fellow at NED. So I'm very happy to see 15 young emerging leaders from Pakistan. So this is what actually we were wishing and we are doing in Pakistan, to have more leaders, especially in the young generation. So I'm so happy, and I appreciate Atlantic Council effort in Pakistan to encourage this youth. So, and just like, if I'm not forgetting the name of the lady, she asked about the pressing issue in Pakistan. So I wish we could have one issue. So, because we have so many pressing issues, but the good thing is, like, we have a very good diversity in the emerging leadership. Like, you can see the youth sitting here, like, they're focusing on multi-issues. So the more we have issues, the more we have the, I would say, the potential leadership coming out of those issues. So for that, actually, very happy. And my suggestion to Zahra, she mentioned she is working on very good, I would say, like, a very important issue. Because I belong myself to Dir, and I have seen this militancy coming and starting even from my region, and then the IDPs and all those things. So nowadays we have a very big issue, like the suicide issue in women and girls is much increasing in Swat. Every day we are hearing about the cases in girls and women, and because they're still in trauma, what actually they've been through. So you also need to come there in Malakand division, and we are there to support you, and we are there to link you with the women and girls there in Swat, Malakand, and all the region. So like I would suggest you need to focus there as well. And Mr. Syed Azhar, yeah. As we have experienced, like the IDPs, the very historic influx, and then they were there with the host families, and like still our PDMA, the Provincial Disaster Management Authority, and the FATA Disaster Management Authority, they're in the process of establishment. What you mentioned, actually, this is a very good point, like the coordination, the access to information, and then access to especially women and girls in such cultures, like in our culture, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and FATA, which is still a very critical issue. We are still even have a big number of IDPs, like from Waziristan, like still the operation is going on, and we have. So I just want to know about this specifically, that do you have any process of engagement with the Provincial Disaster Management Authority and the FATA, FDMA, this FATA Development Authority, Disaster Management Authority, that you have, because these recommendations should go to them, because they are the authorities and they should come up with such initiatives, because we couldn't see these things there. Because again, the issue is the culture, which is very much, like I would say, you work in Sindh. In Sindh, comparatively, you can access women, and you can access, at least you can engage people. So you have, either you have any best practices, like engaging PDMA and FDMA in these things. If you have such best practices, so we would love to hear about that. And if not, then what specific recommendations do you have for them to utilize based on your experience? Thank you.
So think about that question. We'll take the question from the lady in blue. And also I encourage you to, hopefully you can stick around and connect with some of the individuals at the reception.
Hi, thank you very much for coming and speaking. You all have really inspiring stories, and it's an honor to be here and listen to you. My name is Alina Ali, and I grew up in Lahore, Pakistan, and I am currently in the US doing my undergraduate education. And I'm in DC interning at the Woodrow Wilson Center these days. So it's great to be here and listen to you all. So my question is primarily for the individuals who are involved in the tech industry in Pakistan. Through your stories about your own startups, you sort of alluded to how you, through your experiences and efforts in the tech industry, have helped to sort of overcome some of the shortcomings of the public sector and the government, whether that be through providing resources for entrepreneurs or through enhancing and connecting disaster relief efforts. But through your experience and exposure, how does the public sector constrain the development of the tech industry, either through institutional deficiencies or active policies which have an adverse effect, or just a lack of policies and attention that has been devoted to the tech industry? I'm very curious to sort of get a sense of how the government can be, better sort of prepare itself and harness its own resources to meet the needs of our burgeoning tech industry. Thank you.
I think, Fatima, that would be great if you could answer that.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Samina, for the question. So when I was telling you my story, I told you about an incubator. So you'll be glad to know that that incubator was launched by the government of Punjab. So the government of Punjab has been actively working in entrepreneurship and tech sector of Pakistan. They were the first one to introduce entrepreneurship and on these incubators, and then the other organizations followed and they started these things as well. And in terms of solutions, the government is also working on these things, and we are also seeing certain initiatives in Pakistan like Code for Pakistan who are working on developing solutions who can be very helpful to general public.
I would add to this, and both of the questions would be hopefully answered. I would give example, we developed a two-way communication tool. That is after the examples I give, those projects were, but the entire team were involved. That was with other organizations than in the startup. Then we developed a two-way communication tool because we figured out that if you have a frugal innovative product that could be easily deployed, that could be a low-cost solution, and that could be very effective for two-way communication, two-way engagement, and it could be used as an audience feedback system, as a complaint and response mechanism, like any sort of engagement between a service delivery institution, be it the state or the civil society organization or PDMA or FDMA, any organization. Now the biggest problem that you face is, so we have been successful in getting its first deployment because, in tech sector, when you are developing such a product at a grain scale, and sorry everyone for using technical jargon, but just small, like Asterisk and Ye framework and these type of systems, very complicated systems. So you need to then deploy it and pilot test it in a very dynamic environment. We got that, but unfortunately, it's good though with a very good project. It's an INGO International Oxfam funded project on sexual reproductive health and HIV/AIDS advocacy project. But we wanted it to be with government. Now the problem is when you are selling it to the government, there needs to be the ownership for such system, and complaints and feedback is such a system. Not even in Pakistan, in any country, it would be. No one would agree to it ever. It's very difficult to sell it. We've been trying it. We have tried it with PDMA for the IDPs, that two-way engagement system wherein complaints could be solicited. It could be in systematic way, organized way, processed. But we have never been successful. I have met 2-3 federal ministers. I have met a provincial minister. I once convinced a very important minister. But then ultimately it ended with the bureaucrats. My concept paper, I still don't know where it went, and no one would respond. So you see, then you realize at some point of time that okay, it's until and unless you do not get lucky to someday just impress someone like a prime minister or chief minister who at that instant say, okay, yes, do it. And so I thought that let's focus on the socio-economic development sector. So with government, it's very difficult, frankly, honestly speaking.
So I believe, unfortunately, we have actually gone over our time, but I encourage hopefully all of you to stay and continue these conversations and maybe talk to some of the fellows that you didn't get a chance to hear from, because they all have really great stories and are doing just remarkable work in the country. So please, thank you all. Please join me in thanking these fellows. And yeah, I guess I'll see you in the reception.